First thing to make the shop is we want to insert a part. So I'm going to make this part red, smooth plastic, and make it half transparent. And to finish off, I'm going to disable collision. Then I'm going to insert, first of all, a shop GUI that I created. I will put the link to it in the description. And then we're going to expand this and find the close text button. We are going to click this and then add a local strip into it. And in this local strip, we only need a bit of code. So first of all, script.parent.mouse button or click connect function game.replicated storage.shop stuff.events.close shop event fire server. So this close shop event does not exist, but that is going to be what we're going to be making next. We can close off the script and head over to the replicated storage. Now, because this is a project with multiple items, I have decided that I'm going to group this better, so I'm going to insert a folder into replicated storage, which I'm going to name shop stuff to create a mentioned folder events. And lastly, we need to create inside here a remote event, which we are going to name close shop event. We in the shop stuff also need another folder, which we are going to name shop items. And in here, I'm first of all going to make a sword item in the shop. So I'm going to insert in here a folder which I'm going to name sword. We have to make the capitalization correctly. In here we need three things. First of all, a string value, which we're going to call image ID. We also need an int value, which is going to be called price. And then we of course need our sword. I'm just going to be using this sword. I'm going to also call it correctly. Now, if we want to add another item, we actually see the shop GUI here. And if we quickly drag it into starter GUI, there is actually a thing we need to do with this, and just to work properly. In the scrolling frame, we have a frame called sword. And for every item in the shop, we'd have to duplicate this and name it accordingly. And because of the UI grid layout, it will already arrange these in the correct way. But it is important here that we actually call this frame correctly, because this is one that does not generate the thing and we'd have to create the UI ourselves. Anyway, in the part we are going to insert a script in which we're going to get a touched event, script.parent.touched connect function hit local plr equals to game dot players get player from character hit dot parent if player to detect if that actually is a player or if it's just a part. Then we are going to make a local plr GUI equals to plr dot player GUI. If plr GUI find first child shop GUI spelled the way we have our shop GUI here named, then we're instantly going to go to an else local GUI equals to script.parent.shop GUI clone GUI.parent equals to plr GUI, and this will now insert the GUI into the player. Now, as we might remember, a bit earlier we actually in this GUI, in the close button, we created a script which will fire off a replicated storage event, but currently this event is not hooked to any other script to make something happen if this event is fired. So in server script service, we're going to insert a script which we are going to call shop handler. Now something you need to keep in mind is you'll actually have to have a pre-made currency system. I already created a tutorial on how to make one, so I'll just copy and paste that into server script service. My currency name is cash. That will not be relevant. I have exactly explained how you can do this without it being the same. But currently what we need in here is a simple remote event detected. Game.replicate storage.shopstuff.events.close shop event.onServer event connect function, and we get a player. And here we're going to do simply plr.player GUI.shop GUI:destroy. Because if we are already cloning the GUI, then what's the point in keeping it? We can instead just delete it. So now let's actually see if that works. If you disable collisions for your part, you actually have to also anchor it. But now, as we can see, here's our part, and if we touch it, it opens our GUI. If we close it, that closes it, and that works perfectly. For the moment, our GUI will not be able to do anything else. Now let's stop the game really quick and continue. Because the next thing we want to do is for our player to actually be able to buy items. So what we are going to have to do is we are going to have to, in our GUI, in the scrolling frame, in the sword frame, or whatever item frame, currently our buy button does not contain any script, but in here we're going to insert a local script, and we're going to make 4 variables. Local folder equals to game.replicate storage.shop items. Local item equals to folder in square brackets script.parent.parent.name. We use these square brackets to not say folder.script.parent.name because that would be invalid, but instead we are going to separately figure out what is the name of script.parent.parent, and then we are going to search in folder for this name. Then we need to do local price equals to item.price.value. Local ID equals to item.imageID.value. Here we can see why we actually have this value in here, because the image ID is supposed to be for the image that it displays whilst in the shop. So we can simply do this by figuring our outer image. I'm just going to quickly find one from the toolbox because this is just a tutorial. And we're going to paste the asset ID into the string value. Now we're going to do script.parent.text equals to, in quotation marks, the sign that you want for your currency. Then after the quotation marks, dot price. Then dot quotation marks space buy in caps so that it looks good. So this is just going to create the string that starts off with a $sign. After the $sign, it continues with the price so that it shows the correct price with a $sign, and then with a space it shows buy for the button, so that you know for how much and that it's for buying. Now after here we're going to do script.parent.object_display.image equals to ID. So it's going to set the image ID now. And now we only have to do script.parent.now.replicate::connect function game.replicate storage.shopstuff.events.player bot item :fire server, and in the parentheses we're going to put item. Now once again, this is a remote event we haven't created yet, so in events we're going to click on the plus, insert another remote event, and call this accordingly. Now let's head back over to the shop handler, because in here we're going to handle everything for the shops. And before here we're going to do game.replicate storage.shopstuff.events.player bot item dot on servant internet function plr comma item. Now this is quite a mouthful of lines, but this is just going to detect what item we're trying to purchase and then who is trying to purchase this item. So we're going to say local price equals to item.price.value, local tool equals to item, and then once again in square brackets item.name, so that it will take sword, the name of the folder sword, and then it's going to use this name to search for the tool. That's why it's important that we spell these correctly. And finally we're going to do local money equals to plr.leader stats. If you have a different way of referencing the money, you should use it that way. Now I have my currency name to be cash, so I'm going to say up here, make a variable local currency name equals to, in quotation marks, cash. Now you can, instead of cash, put whatever name for your currency you want up here. And back down here, behind leader stats, we're going to, in square brackets, say currency name, so that it finds directly the value of the variable. And then after here, dot value. Now we're going to check if money is bigger or equal to price. So if the player has more money than the object costs, we can award him the object. So money minus equals to price. Now we can also do local tool C equals to tool clone. And now all we have to do is say tool C dot parent equals to plr dot starter year plr dot leader stats square brackets currency name dot value equals to money, and finally tool C clone dot parent equals to plr dot backpack. So what does this do? If it knows, oh yeah, the player has enough money to get the item, it first of all, from our value up here, it reduces the price, then it clones the reference tool, puts it into the starter gear so that if the player dies, he gets the tool back. If you do not want that to be the case, just simply delete this line. Then it actually subtracts the money. And then finally it actually also adds the tool into the backpack so that the player doesn't have to reset character to actually get it. And that does that. We are nearly done, but there's still one more thing we have to do in the shop handler. Because currently, these tools don't save. If you do not wish for the tools to save, in some games that might be the case, in case these are items that the player should only have during a round, then you do not need to watch the second part. If you already have a system that will save your tools, you also don't have to watch this. But for those people who do still need for it to save, then this is what we're going to do now. So first of all, we actually have to get the data store service. So local. So we have to at the start do local ds equals to jame colon get service data store service colon get data store tool data store. Now we only call this ourselves. I've made a separate video on data stores. So what we're first of all going to do is we're going to do while wait 5 do. So every 5 seconds for I comma plr in pairs game dot players colon get players do, because for every player every 5 seconds it has to save all the data. Then it's going to make the variable local tools which is going to be a table by using squiggly brackets. For I comma v in pairs plr dot starter year colon get children do, so that it's going to loop through the starter year. So actually we also have to do get like this. And then two things: local tool equals to v.name table dot insert tools comma tool. So it's going to in our table tools insert the name of the tools that our player has. So if he has a sword, a gun, and an apple, then it's going to save sword, comma, gun, comma, apple. Now, what we have to do is create a key for a data store. So I'm going to do local key equals to. So a good way, because we also have to make an individual key for every person. So something that a player cannot even change is their user ID. So that's a good thing to make the key out of. So plr dot user ID dot and then in parentheses underscore tools. You can change this part to whatever you want, but keep in mind, if you ever published a game and people started saving data, if you change this key in the loading part, then they will lose their data. Well, they just won't be using the data anymore because they're saving and loading two different keys. Final thing, ds colon set async key comma tools, because a data store can only save some certain types of things. Like it can only save, let's say, tables and values. It cannot save, for instance, objects. That is the saving part. For some reason, I like to first do all the saving and then do the loading. But now for the loading part, because we want it to load if the player joins, we'll have to do game.players.player added colon connect function plr. This is a player added event. So we're going to copy over our key from here, so because we want to load and save from the same key. Then we're going to make a variable local tools. Then we're going to get a ptalk function tools equals to ds colon get async, because over here we're setting async to this key, we're saving this table. So in here we only have to insert the key and we will be returned to this table because it got saved. So in our case it was something like sword, comma, gun, comma, apple. So if that was the table that the player saved, then now tools will be sword, comma, gun, comma, apple. But these are not tools, so we have to tell the game that we are looking for these tools. So we're going to do for I comma tools in pairs tools. Now it's going to loop through every object. So in this case, sword, comma, gun, comma, apple. And it's here going to go to if game that replicated storage dot shop stuff dot shop items colon find first child tool. So let's say at this, and here it's going to be tool. So in this case it's going to start with sword. So if it in game replicated sword dot shop stuff dot shop items finds something called the same as sword, then it's going to proceed. So it's going to do local tool c equals to game.replicated source dot shop stuff dot shop items in square bracket tool, and then it is actually going to find the tool. So it's here going to do another tool colon clone. Now here it's just going to do tool c dot parent equals to plr dot starter gear. And the last thing is, just before this ends, is plr::load character. So this is going to, if it finds the recording name, then it's going to clone that tool, put it into the starter gear, and it's going to reload the character to give him all the items. So that was quite a mouthful, and let's see if it works. Something we also have to keep in mind for a currency system is our game needs to be saved, so let's quickly do that. Now that it's published, we can play the game. Now we have 50 cash, and if we touch the part, oh yeah, I forgot to set the price, but it's currently 0. And because we have 50, we can definitely afford 0. So if we click on here, we get our sword. Now if we reset character, because we also have the sword in the starter gear, we still have the sword. Now it has been 5 minutes since we actually bought this thing, so if we stop the game and play again, one thing doesn't work. Oh yeah, I know what I did wrong. Actually, if you're testing this in Studio and you have it saved, this is something I always forget. But what we have to do is we have to, in game settings, security, we have to enable Studio access to API services. Now this should work. So let's just quickly buy this. As you can see, we have it. Now, after about 5 seconds, which will be, yeah, about now, if we stop the game and start it again, we have our sword, which is perfect. Now, something I still want to test if we stop. And in replicated sword, shop stuff, shop items, sword, change the price to, let's say, 25. And play again. Now we still have our sword, but if we touch this part, yes, it displays 25. Now if we buy it, it removed 25 cash, and we have 2 swords. If we buy it again, it still works, but now we have a 3rd sword and are broke. Now if we try buy another one, as much as we spam the button, we don't have enough money, so we cannot purchase a 4th sword. Perfect. Now for the final thing that I'd like to show off in this video is, if you want to add another item to your shop, all you have to do, actually something I kind of did wrong, about the image ID, we actually have to, because this is not an asset ID, this is kind of different. So we'll have to copy this ID, first put it into the image frame, paste it into there, then this will turn it into an asset ID. We'll have to copy this whole thing, and now this will work. To prove this, I can just remove all of this, and that should work. But now, if you want to add another object, what we simply have to do, we do not even have to open any scripts, is we just have to duplicate our frame. Now I'm going to insert a gun here, so I'm just going to call it gun. Then in our replicated sword shop items, we're going to duplicate the sword folder. Then I'm going to search up an image for this. Now I'm going to get an asset ID for that, paste that into the image ID here, name this actually accordingly, or else that won't work. Then I'm going to set the price, because a gun is much better, so I'm going to set it to, let's say, 75. And I'm going to remove the sword tool and find an according model. Yeah, let's just get something like this. I don't know. Let's insert that into here and just call it accordingly, or else it won't work. And now just see if this works. Now we are back with our 3 swords, and as we can see, the images are displayed. Now we cannot buy any of these, so I'm going to have to go onto the server and give myself some money. 75 should be enough. And now if I go to proceed to buy the gun, I got it.